Why do narcissists walk around naked? Part 2. Strip down to the core, the primal roots of the narcissist naked obsession. Forget everything you thought you knew about the narcissist naked antics because it's about to get a whole lot more primal. This is the second part of our exploration into why do narcissists walk around naked. In the first video, we uncovered the disturbing depths of the narcissist nudity fixation, from emotional incest to outright sexual abuse. If you haven't seen that yet, the link will be in the description below or up in the eye icon on YouTube. Now that we have uncovered the disturbing depths of the narcissist nudity fixation, from emotional incest to outright sexual abuse, it's time to take a step back and examine the root causes behind this primal animalistic behavior. Because, believe it or not, the narcissist obsession with bearing all goes even deeper than just power plays and attention seeking. In this second video, we are going to peel back the layers and expose the stark, unsettling parallels between the narcissist nudity and the behavior of wild animals. We'll explore how these emotional toddlers are essentially reverting to base reptilian instincts when they strip down and force their naked bodies on unsuspecting victims. And ultimately, we will come to understand that at their core, these withered husks are nothing more than glorified primates, driven solely by urges and the need to dominate their surroundings. Number one, the narcissistic need for attention and reaction. Well, for the average garden variety narcissist, who doesn't necessarily veer into full-blown sexual predator territory, this nudity obsession is still rooted in much more base primal drive, the insatiable need for attention and reaction. See, these withered husks of humanity are hardwired to crave the spotlight like a junkie craves their next fix. Negative attention, positive attention, it ultimately doesn't matter, as long as the eyeballs are focused squarely on them and their needs are being met. And when it comes to getting that sweet narcissistic supply, nothing seems to scratch that itch quite like shocking and offending the normals with a good old-fashioned nudity power play. I mean, think about it. What's one of the most taboo, transgressive acts a human can pull to immediately command attention and dominate a situation? That's right, stripping off their clothes and waving their shriveled privates around like a demented flag. So whether it's the narcissist waltzing around the house in the buff or the one who just forgets to button up their pants when summoning an employee, the underlying psychology is the same. These emotional toddlers are getting their rocks off on the visceral discomfort and reactions they are able to inflict on others. It's the same reason a spoiled brat in a grocery store might start screaming and throwing a tantrum. The narcissist is essentially doing the adult version of that, using nudity as a weapon to force everyone in their orbit to focus solely on them and their twisted needs. And the sicker part is these freakish exhibitionists actually get a thrill and sense of power from making their victims uncomfortable, like that flaccid failure of a boss who took delight in making his female employee catch glimpses of his shriveled manhood. To him, shoving his pathetic genitals into her line of sight was an intoxicating way to remind her who was really in charge. In the deceased's mind, the narcissist is thinking something along the lines of, look how uncomfortable I'm making you. My nudity is shocking you into submission, proving my superiority. It's that simple-minded toddler logic of, if I do this shocking thing, everyone will have to pay attention to me. And honestly, the lengths these hollowed-out husks will go in order to get the narcissistic high is truly staggering. I'm talking about narcissists who will gleefully strip down in the most public, inappropriate setting, from the office to the family barbecue, all so they can revel in the visceral reaction and discomfort of those around them. At the end of the day, the narcissist nudity fixation boils down to the most base, primal urge of all, the need to be the center of attention, no matter the cost. Shock value, domination, humiliation. These are the narcissist's bread and butter. When it comes to using their birthday sweets to get the reactions a narcissistic supply, they so desperately crave. It's the adult version of a toddler's temper tantrum, just with a whole lot more shriveled genitalia involved. Animal parallels and lack of higher reasoning. Now I know we have spent a lot of time diving into the twisted psyche of the narcissist and their deeply disturbing motivations behind all this public nudity nonsense. But I think it's also important to take a step back and really examine the core reasons why these emotional vampires have such an infantile, animalistic fixation on bearing it all. Because when you really peel back the layers, the narcissist nudity obsession doesn't stem from higher plane of human reasoning or complex psychological need. Nope. It's rooted in the most base reptilian urges, the same kind of primal instincts you would see from a rabid dog marking its territory or a baboon flaunting its headquarters. Think about it. When a narcissist strips down and parades around in the buff, what are they really doing? They're not engaging in some profound act of self-expression or body positivity. They're not even trying to titillate or seduce. No, they are quite literally regressing to the level of shameless animal, using nudity as a crude, unsophisticated way to assert dominance, claim ownership, and demand attention. It's the adult equivalent of a toddler running around buck naked at a family barbecue, thinking nothing of exposing their bare bottom to everyone present. The narcissist is not operating on any higher reasoning or emotional maturity. They are simply acting on pure instinct, like a wild beast marking its territory by urinating on every surface. And really, when you look at the cold hard facts, that's all the narcissist is, a glorified primate with a veneer of human intelligence. Beneath that thin facade of civilization, they are nothing more than a reptilian brain stem wrapped in a meat sack, driven solely by base impulses, urges, and never-ending need to control their environment. So when a narcissist steps down and forces their nudity on you, don't be fooled into thinking there's some deeper psychological game at play. They're not engaging in some complex power move or subtle form of manipulation. They are just a stunned, emotionally underdeveloped cretin reverting to the most animalistic of behaviors, desperately trying to assert the perceived dominance through the crudest means possible. It's the adult equivalent of a chimp flinging its own feces, a loud, messy display of aggression and ownership that comes straight from the reptilian core of their shriveled little being. Except instead of flinging poo, they are flinging their sagging genitalia in your general direction. Charming, I know. At the end of the day, the narcissist nudity fixation is not some grand psychological scheme. It's the equivalent of a rabid dog lifting its leg to mark its territory. These emotional toddlers are simply acting on pure base instinct, using shock value and humiliation as their crude weapon of choice. Beneath their veneer of human intelligence, they are nothing more than glorified primates driven solely by the urges and the need to dominate their surroundings. So the next time one of these withered husks strips down in front of you, remember, you're not dealing with a person. You're dealing with a glorified animal in a skin suit. Number 3, drawing the line between privacy and promiscuity. Now I know we have covered a lot of heavy, disturbing ground when it comes to narcissist twisted relationship with nudity, from the emotional incest and sexual abuse to the pure, unadulterated ego stroking their seams to drive their exhibitionist tendencies. These emotional train wrecks really have taken things to some deeply disturbing depths. But I think it's important that we take a step back and have an honest, nuanced discussion about where that line gets drawn between normal, healthy privacy and the narcissist brand of shameless, predatory promiscuity. Because the reality is, not every instance of nudity or lack of modesty is automatically a sign of narcissistic abuse or violation. I mean, let's be real. We all have moments where we might walk around the house in our birthday suites, whether it's stepping out of the shower or just lounging around in the comfort of our own personal space. And hey, that's great. Embracing your body and feeling at ease in your own skin is perfectly normal and a healthy thing. The key difference, of course, is that narcissist has no concept of appropriate boundaries or consent when it comes to nudity. They don't see the human body as something sacred or private. It's just another chess piece to be manipulated and put on display for their own twisted gratification. So where does that line get drawn? Well, I would say it's all about intent, context, and the presence or lack thereof of true consent. If someone is simply going about their day existing comfortably in their own home or personal space without imposing themselves on others, that's one thing. But the second that nudity starts creeping into public areas, professional settings, or any situation where there is an imbalance of power, that's when we have firmly crossed over the narcissistic violation territory. Like the heinous boss who would accidentally expose himself to his female employees, or the husband who insisted on parading around the house in the nude, constantly forcing his wife to bear witness. Those aren't innocent acts of body positivity. Those are calculated, predatory power plays designed to assert dominance, humiliate, and traumatize. And let's not forget the truly sickening cases of narcissistic parents who violate their own children's boundaries, forcing those poor kids to endure inappropriate nudity and sexual exposure. When the human body is used as a weapon to inflict harm, control, and lasting psychological damage, that's when we know we are squarely in the realm of narcissistic abuse, plain and simple. So I guess the takeaway here is that not all nudity is created equal. There's a world of difference between someone embracing body positivity or simply existing comfortably in their own space versus a narcissist wielding the naked body like a cudgel to dominate, humiliate, and traumatize those around them. The key is understanding intent, consent, and whether the nudity is crossing over into public, professional, or familial spheres where it has no place being. Because when it comes to narcissists, you can bet your bottom dollar that their bare bottoms are being used for all the wrong reasons. I know we have covered a lot of truly disturbing ground in these two videos, from the narcissist twisted psychology to the sickening reality of how they use nudity to sexually abuse and exploit their victims. It's heavy, unsettling stuff that can leave you feeling raw and unsure where to even begin. But I hope that arming you with this knowledge, you'll feel empowered to spot the warning signs, protect yourself, and put a stop to the narcissistic toxic nonsense once and for all. Because when it comes to these emotional vampires and their nudity fixation, knowledge truly is power. So the next time you find yourself dealing with a narcissist in your life and their disturbing fixation on nudity, remember, you're not just witnessing some complex psychological game. You are seeing the raw animalistic instincts of a glorified primate in action. If you want to better understand the dark underpinnings driving this toxic behavior, I would highly recommend checking out our previous video titled Examples of Narcissists' Twisted Nudity, where we explored from their stunned emotional development and warped power dynamics to the sickening reality of how they use their naked bodies to sexually abuse and exploit those around them. You can find the link to the video in the description below. So if you're ready to dive even deeper into the dark world of narcissism, be sure to hit that subscribe button. We are going to keep shining a light on these dangerous predatory behaviors, giving you the tools you need to shut them down for good. Together we can break the cycle of abuse and ensure that no one else falls victims to these shameless exhibitionist freak shows. Thank you.